Sunny Liston, the fight with Sunny Liston.
Yes.
It was something big. No, firstly, he was, enticing him to come and fight with him, and then the fight. Nobody was expecting him to beat Sunny Liston.
Right.
He
antagonized Sunny Liston. He went to his house and put a bear trap at his door on his lawn.
Wow.
Yeah, and called him the big ugly bear. Who does that? He intimidated him. Half the fight was already lost.
So, and nobody was expecting Sunny Liston to give up in the last round.
Oh, they knew he wouldn't.
So how did that happen? That confidence.
That confidence.
How did that come?
Made Sunny Liston lose his confidence, but with all the traps and calling him a bear, he antagonized him, and that's his style, to intimidate his opponent before he gets into the ring. Half the fight is already won then, right. Because he made Sunny Liston feel insecure. And you make somebody mad enough, they can't think when they're fighting. That was his tactic.
The insecurity was Muhammad Ali's strength.
Yes.
Right. But the America back then was struggling for the rights of the people of color, the people of race.
Exactly.
And Muhammad Ali was a big part of it in a way that he refused to go to Vietnam War.
Yeah.
And he had to face a lot of troubles after that.
Right.
How did he take that?
That was because of the legacy of the Muslims in America. We never go to the white man's wars. We were conscientious objectors. He got that idea from being interested in Islam. And that drove him to not go to the army. That's why he did not step forward. They had tricked him. They had already, when he was Cassius Clay, they had already drafted him once. But psychologically, he failed when he started hanging around Muslims. All of a sudden, this guy is a genius. He's smart. So they said, well, we're going to induct him in the army. So he drafted him twice. That's really against the law. But since they made the law, they can change the law to their own, justification. So I told him that he didn't want to go to the jail. He was a young man. He didn't want to go to jail, but he didn't understand what the Muslim sacrifice is about. To sacrifice your belief, to sacrifice things that you really don't want to do, and for something you believe in is more important than anything. And he learned that by being around Muslims. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, he said, I want to be a Muslim. He said, well, you can't go to the white man's wars because you're Muslim. If you become Muslim, you cannot do that. You cannot go into the army. He said, wow, I don't want to go to jail. And he was only a young man at the time. He said, well, you talk to Belinda. You talk to her. She'll explain to you what it means not to go to the army. Because I was young, I can speak on his level and make it plain for him to understand. So how can I do that? I'm 14 years old. I can tell a grown man what to do, but I'm going to do it so he can understand it. So when I told him, I said, if you want to be the most famous man in the world, you wouldn't go to the army. You'd be the first one not to go.
Right.
And because all the other black Afro-Americans was going to the army. You know what I mean?
They were basically bound by the law.
They were bound by the law.
To,
they were actually forced to, actually, it is. So they didn't want any trouble, and so they went. When Muhammad found out that we don't go to the army, he said, I don't know. I don't want to go to jail. I says, well, this is the sacrifice of standing up for your beliefs. And then he looked at me, he says, well, what would you do? And I would say, hell no, I ain't gonna go. Clean out my cell, take me to jail without bail. Hell no. And the next morning, he was raving on the television, hell no, I'm not gonna go. He repeated everything I said. So I said, now it's up to you to make that decision, because nobody can make that decision with you, but you'd be the greatest and most famous man in the world if you do that.
But he was risking his career for that. He was afterwards banned in all 50 states from boxing and fighting. He had to go to Canada and UK to fight.
I told him, risk everything you believe, everything you love, risk it for Islam. Because if you sacrifice and stick with Islam, Allah will lead you to a glorious paradise.
And he actually came up and later on stood up.
I was so proud of him. I was so proud. He said, Belinda said, no, I can't go. Hell no, I can't go. He said she would do it, so he did it. But I didn't know he was going to mimic me all the way through down the line, and he didn't. He did it, and I was so proud of him. I really was.